my name is Elizabeth Ayala, and this is a guide to the California ballot initiatives in the November 2016 election. I love learning about politics, so I made this video to help my friends choose how they're going to vote. No endorsements will be made in this video. The video you're watching covers just a couple of the ballots as part of a series of videos. This video you're watching is going to cover Propositions 55, 56, 57, and 58. The video is going to provide main components of the ballot initiatives, arguments from supporters and opponents, as well as the basics in money and politics, how much was raised by each side, and who the top three donors were. Note, even though the money was raised, it doesn't mean it's necessarily been spent. There's also different reporting dates for the money and politics, so I'll let you know. This quick guide had three main resources, and most likely there's going to be at least one ballot initiative where you're going to need to do additional homework to make sure you feel good about your vote. So what are the sources that I use so you can look them up yourself? The California League of Women Voter Ballot Guide, it's the simplest of the three guides. VotersEdge.org, a guide with interests or people funding each side, it's middle of the road. And by far the most comprehensive, the best website is ballotopedia.org/California. Everything you want to know is in there, including commercials that each side has shown, endorsements, the money in politics as well, even info that you can look up about the mysterious political action committees, everything. Proposition 55, a tax extension to fund education and healthcare. So some background. In 2012, Prop 30 increased income tax rates 1% to 3% on high income tax earners through 2018. That's defined as individuals earning more than $263,000 a year, couples earning more than $563,000 a year. Prop 30 also included a quarter-cent increase in the state sales tax. So what does Prop 55 do? It would extend the income tax on high-income earners through 2030, but not the sales tax. Prop 55's increased revenues would be used for education, healthcare services for low-income people, and other state budget purposes. And the fiscal impact would be approximately increasing the revenues for the state $4 billion to $9 billion a year. Supporters of Proposition 55 say that it maintains existing tax rates, so it's not increasing taxes, it's maintaining existing taxes since Proposition 30 passed, so the wealthy pay their fair share to provide adequate funding for education and healthcare. Supporters also say it has strict accountability requirements, making sure that the funding reaches schools and other needed services. Opponents say that voters for Prop 30 were promised that the increases would be temporary, not permanent, and this extends what Prop 30 originally intended. These tax increases are not needed to adequately fund education, healthcare, and state government. And finally, opponents say it would be a job killer. The total raised in support of Proposition 55 is $52.5 million. The top funder for the proposition is California Hospitals Committee on Issues, sponsored by California Association of Hospitals and Health Systems. It's also the California Teachers Association, and the number 3 donor is SEIU California, a union. The total raised against is individuals donating less than $1,000 each, and less than $10,000 has been recorded against the proposition. Proposition 56, cigarette tax. It increases the state cigarette taxes from 87 cents per pack to $2.87 per pack. Then it doesn't impact the federal taxes that already exist of $1.01 per pack. A new fund would be established to support existing tobacco control, healthcare programs, and some enforcement of tobacco-related laws. It amends the Constitution so new revenues from this tax don't go to the minimum funding requirements for education, similar to earlier voter-approved tobacco taxes. It could raise, and this is estimates, $1.3 to $1.6 billion in new taxes. Supporters say that cigarette smoking kills more than 40,000 Californians annually, and tax increases are effective ways to reduce use of cigarettes. Taxpayers pay $3.58 billion every year for tobacco-related healthcare costs. This initiative ensures tobacco users will help to offset the cost of healthcare. And supporters finally generally say it doesn't take a dime from schools. It protects schools' funding while helping to keep our kids from getting hooked on deadly addictive tobacco. So essentially, what it's doing is that it's not taking away from school funding, but it is not going under the general fund for California spending, and therefore the minimum 40% of California state funding that needs to be spent on education in this case would not apply. Opponents say that this is misleading, as insurance companies will be paid billions of dollars for treating the same Medi-Cal patients that they treat today, and that Prop 56 allocates just 13% of new tobacco tax money to treat smokers just to stop kids from starting. Opponents also say Prop 56 will circumvent California's Constitution school funding guarantee, as I explained earlier, and that this tax will disproportionately hurt low-income persons who are more likely to use tobacco products. $22 million has been raised in support of Proposition 56. Here's a familiar committee: California Hospitals Committee on Issues, sponsored by the California Association of Hospitals and Health Systems, is the top donor. Thomas F. Steyer is one of the top donors. He's an American hedge fund manager, philanthropist, environmentalist, and a major donor for other initiatives. Proposition 62 is essentially in support and against Prop 66. And then the union SEIU California rounds out the top three donors. 56 million, almost 57 million has been raised against. All three funders of the opposition, as you can see, are tobacco companies. In fact, Altria Group is a parent company of several tobacco products. Proposition 57, criminal sentences, parole, juvenile criminal proceedings, and sentencing. So prison sentences in California are set either as a fixed amount of time or an indeterminate amount of time, which is a minimum but not specific maximum time, such as 25 years to life. So what Proposition 57 would do is amend the state constitution to allow parole consideration for persons convicted of nonviolent felonies who have served their minimum sentences and passed screening for public security. It would also create programs incentivizing, rehabilitation programs and an incentive for prisoners to enroll in these programs and therefore apply for early parole. Another provision of the law is that it would require or change state law to require that youths have a hearing in juvenile court to determine whether they should be transferred to adult court. So it eliminates the ability of prosecutors to make that determination, instead giving it to a judge whether they should be tried as an adult. The estimate is that the corresponding prison population decrease would reduce the state's $10 billion corrections budget by tens of millions of dollars, offset by costs to conduct more parole hearings, of course. The county costs would increase due to an increase in the probation services needed, however. Supporters say it would increase parole and good behavior opportunities for felons convicted of nonviolent crimes, which means real focus on rehabilitation. Supporters also say that juvenile court judges, not prosecutors with political aspirations, should decide if a youth is tried as an adult. Finally, without a common sense, long-term solution, California will continue to waste billions of dollars and risk a court-ordered release of dangerous prisoners to reduce prison overcrowding. This proposition, they say, focuses on the nonviolent crimes. Opponents say the weakening of California's anti-crime laws have gone too far. California's Constitution should not be amended to give more rights to criminals. Opponents also say that Proposition 57 is a poorly drafted measure, classifying certain crimes such as rape by intoxication and assault with a deadly weapon as nonviolent and eligible for early parole under this program. So if you'd like to look up more information, again, I suggest Ballotopedia, since this is a more complex law. Proposition 57 has raised $8.7 million in support. The top funder is actually a political action committee led by Governor Brown. The second funder is the California Democratic Party. And the third is Reed Hastings, the co-founder of Netflix, a philanthropist, and also a major donor to Proposition 62. All of these figures are current as of October 2nd. Total raised against is $281,000. The Political Issues Committee, I'm assuming is a PAC, is for the LA Sheriffs. The second is Union for Deputy DAs in Los Angeles County, called Association of Deputy District Attorneys. And then three individuals, such as conservative writer David Horowitz, Kevin Bernst, David Malcolm, all donating around $10,000. Proposition 58, English Proficiency, Multilingual Education. Background again. In 1998, Prop 227 imposed certain restrictions on how California public schools teach English learners. So, classroom instruction must be in English only. Enrollment in a bilingual program requires a waiver to be signed by a parent. And Proposition 227 had other provisions. So, this law means that schools would no longer be required to teach English learners in English only programs. It would allow bilingual education based on the needs of the students. And school districts would have to get feedback from parents about how English learners should be taught. It would also repeal certain Prop 227 provisions that make it difficult for native English speakers to enroll and participate in immersion programs so they can learn a second language. Supporters say this allows districts to meet local needs with greater flexibility. They also say that the proposed programs must be evaluated objectively based on outcomes and research. Finally, they say it promotes bilingual fluency for both English learners and native English speakers who choose to enroll in bilingual programs. Opponents say being surrounded by English speakers leads to faster English language acquisition, and this does not promote that classroom setting. Schools shouldn't return to methods that haven't worked, and they say the proposition would lift restrictions on state legislature, enabling Sacramento to establish Spanish almost only instruction in public schools. The total raised in support is $1.4 million by the California Teachers Association, SEIU Local 2015, a union, and the Association of California School Administrators, California Federation of Teachers, California State Service Employees. All three of these entities have donated approximately each $100,000. There's no funding for the opposition recorded as of October 2nd. This was just a few of the ballot initiatives, and you can watch the other videos in the series. After doing your own homework, perhaps you may still be in doubt. Some general advice is when in doubt, even when doing your homework, just vote no. Thank you, and I hope this has been helpful.